Welcome. I'm Niki Saccareccia, and I want to show you some variations of tree pose. It's a very popular standing balancing pose. In Sanskrit, it's called Vrksasana, V-R-K, Vrksasana. So tree pose, starting in the most basic sense, you'll need to come into mountain pose. So in mountain pose, your feet can be close together, like what I'm demonstrating. And when you look down, there's a little wedge of space between your heels. Your feet aren't very close, exact together. There's a little wedge of space. Or, and this is my personal preference, your feet are as wide as your hips are. So that could be hip sockets where your thighs join your pelvis, or outer hips. So I'll just invite you right now to play around in those variations to see which one feels more balanced to you, what feels more natural or more steadying to you. The foundation of tree pose is steadiness, not the balancing aspect. And actually, your balance will improve if you have a feeling or a connection to steadiness. So, from whatever version of standing in mountain pose you're in, start to shift your weight from one leg to the other. And you might notice that some of your toes begin to lift or curl down into the floor, or you might even leave the floor a little bit as your feet shift from side to side. Often, what I see in students when they're trying to practice something like tree pose is this strong attachment to not falling. And so, of course, I'm going to tell you it's not about not falling, it's about balancing. Okay. So, it's nice to have a little bit of play or looseness in your body as you're moving towards this one legged balance pose. Because if there's fear or anticipation of falling, you're going to stiffen up. And that's not going to help energy flow. It's not going to help you actually balance that well either. So now that you're feeling hopefully a little more loose and natural in your stance, shift your weight over to your left foot. And notice if your hip juts out. Think about keeping everything stacked up. Ankle, knee, hip, torso, all stacked as vertical as you can get it. And then just notice my right heel is off the floor. So already you're basically standing on one leg. You're going to turn your knee and your hip out. Don't force it. Don't go so far that your body starts to torque, just enough that your hip is rotated out to the side, and then slide your foot towards your straight leg. So this is variation 1 of Vrksasana. And you might take your arms out, hands to hips, more classically, palms come together. Option 2 for tree pose is to slide your right foot up onto the inside of your calf. Okay, now, just as when you push your hands together, there's a natural tendency for your hands to be even. You're not pushing one hand more than the other. There's a natural balance, or like a 50-50 sharing of effort between your two sides. It's the same here. So a little bit, think of squeezing your foot onto your standing leg, which allows your lifted leg to remain active. Okay, option 3, you lift your foot, your right foot, higher. So I'm going to pull up on the fabric of my pants here so that my foot doesn't slip down. And you might have to do that too, depending on what kind of clothing you're wearing. So now I've got my foot balanced on my inner thigh. You can even bring your heel higher into your groin. And again, you're trying to stay vertical. Just as a tree grows vertically towards the source of light that it's getting its nourishment from. So again, avoid pushing your hip out to the side. It's always okay to start over. If you feel like you're kind of losing it or you lost your balance, just start from the beginning. Find your stance in mountain, and then you go into that variation that feels best to you. And then you can add a big canopy of branches once you feel balanced. So this is Vrksasana, tree pose. Enjoy your practice.